By Florian Eder with ZOYA SHEFTALOVICH, presented by ETNO. Send tips here. Tweet at Florian Eder. View in your browser. Good morning. Should you be looking for Brussels reporters next week? Here's where we'll be. There are 7 summits, of one kind or another, between Tuesday and Friday. The Brexit one, known in Brusselish as the European Council in Article 50 format, is a make-it-or-break-it evening. It's when the EU 27 will decide whether decisive progress has been made in negotiations with London. If it's a yes, they'll talk future relations Wednesday over dinner. And if it's a no, brace for impact. No pressure. As expected, the Commission didn't publish its no-deal preparation papers Wednesday, helping to maintain a harmonious working atmosphere during the current negotiating frenzy. But as is so often the case, though the Brits seem not to have fully realised this yet, EU governments are taking a harder line, with several pushing the Commission to do more, and communicate more, on the Union's Brexit preparedness. Not in the loop. There is a growing sense among the EU 27 that outstanding preparedness questions have to be addressed very quickly and in a detailed way, an EU diplomat said, calling on the Commission to keep governments more in the loop, and complaining that it doesn't, despite repeated requests. Since time is of the essence, the Commission needs to be more actively engaged to enable EU 27 member states to address the remaining preparedness issues timely, effectively and in a coordinated way. If there's a no-deal scenario to be dealt with at some point, the EU 27 need to be ready on day 1 to address issues like citizens' rights, transport or customs coherently. Barnier's offer. The EU's chief Brexit negotiator Michel Barnier set out the latest offer Wednesday, in front of an audience of business folks playing at European Parliament, and was pretty clear on the terms of the deal that the EU expects the UK to agree to. Here's what he said in his speech, which is worth reading, and what he meant. 1. The UK will effectively stay in the customs union temporarily, maybe for longer than the transition period, but perhaps shorter than eternity, and hence continue to apply the EU's external tariffs. Translation: during that time period, London can say goodbye to trade deals with the world. 2. Northern Ireland will remain part of the EU's single market, meaning checks will be necessary for goods shipped from the rest of the UK to Northern Ireland. Barnier said they could be done, in the least intrusive way possible, with customs declarations completed online and checks involving scanning the barcodes of the lorries or containers. 3. That's a backstop, meaning it's going to operate as long as there's no other solution included in a free trade agreement of thus far unknown depth, scope and beauty. That could be Canada or something even better, the prospects of which will be revealed in the political declaration on the future relationship, and painted in the brightest colors currently available or yet to be invented. Gunther Oettinger's Reality Check Corner. The Commissioner's take on resolving the Irish border question? It's mission impossible, Oettinger said in a speech at Brussels' Bibliothèque Solvay Tuesday evening. Bill's Albert Link writes in to tell us. Oettinger's message to British PM Theresa May: show more backbone. The most important thing was that Mrs. May, with or without dances, left her party conference strengthened, she survived, Oettinger said. She must now use the momentum. She must now lead and be prepared to make further concessions to us, no matter what Boris Johnson thinks or says. ****, a message from ETNO. Do you know that 5G is coming to Brussels next Monday? On the occasion of the ETNO conference, Huawei is bringing a 5G truck to town. Come get a glimpse of the future of human communications and try out our demos. All info here. ****. Power Timmermans runs. The Commission's most senior Social Democrat, Frans Timmermans, confirmed on Wednesday that he'll run to be the lead candidate for the Commission presidency for the S. He did so from his preferred bar in his hometown in eastern Netherlands, in jeans and a denim shirt and no jacket, in Dutch, saying, "I'm from Heerlen, not from Brussels," in case people have forgotten where this polyglot member of the European elite and standard-bearer of Western democratic values comes from. Timmermans' Dutch Labour Party can do with a boost in the EU election after being reduced to 9 seats from 38 in the Dutch parliament in the 2017 election. The Liberal conundrum: will Emmanuel Macron really join ALDE? There's a tentative deal between the French president and Liberal Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte to join forces, David Hirschenhorn and Maya de la Baume report in this juicy scoop. Operatives who described the plan said the parties in the coalition would campaign around a common platform, or in a joint venture. In blunter terms, they're looking for an overlap of issues dear to all of them, such as the rule of law, and ignoring their differences in economic and fiscal policies. Open question: what to do with the HOF? Make no mistake, Rutte, Europe's informal liberal leader, is leaning toward a two-speed, or multi-speed, Europe, à la Macron, and increasingly turning away from German-style inclusiveness, aka waiting for the slowest and the unwilling to catch up with the rest. If he and Macron do align, that new power center in the West is bad news for Eastern Europe. Political asylum: some of the MEPs from the European Parliament's Civil Liberties, Justice and Home Affairs Committee and those who follow the legislative proposals aimed at reforming the Common European Asylum System (CEAS) have written a European Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker and Austrian Chancellor Sebastian Kurz to express deep concern about the status of the reform. In the letter, which Playbook has obtained, the MEPs say that the EU hasn't adopted any of the proposals for revising the CEAS, despite the fact all of the EU's institutions gave them priority status. They write that it's very difficult to understand how the Council, even in the face of the current situation of refugees and member states in Europe, has not yet succeeded in adopting a mandate in accordance with the treaties. We fail to understand why the Council cannot apply a qualified majority rule, but insists in reaching a consensus, which we hear is the reason for the stalemate. Read the letter to Kurz here, and the one to Juncker here. **** You're invited. Join us on November 16th in Brussels at Politico's event, Is Europe Cyber Ready? How should lawmakers mitigate the threats on Europe's digital security? We'll discuss with speakers such as Julian King, European Commissioner for the Security Union, Antonio Missiroli, Assistant Secretary General for Emerging Security Challenges, NATO, and Uku Sarikano, Deputy Director General, Estonian Information System Authority. Register today. **** Money. Now we know, people don't have the full picture about Italy's finances and are relying on partial and obsolete information that doesn't reflect the riches of the government's fiscal and economic plans, Finance Minister Giovanni Tria told the Italian parliament. That's why the government stands by its forecasts on Italy's economic growth, which failed to get the backing of the Parliamentary Budget Office, UPB. Following the UPB's failure to validate the economic planning, the government considers it opportune to confirm the forecasts, Tria said. He managed to calm markets a little, but in other Salvini salvo is never far away. And on those forecasts, while Tria is sticking with the 1.5% of GDP growth rate predicted in the draft budget for next year, Paolo Savona, who would have loved to have been finance minister himself, told reporters in Rome that he could even see growth of 2%. Of course, the Bank of Italy predicts a mere 1% growth next year, as do those silly and ignorant folks of the IMF. Fiscal brawl, showing more flexibility with countries under the EU's fiscal rules, is not necessary anymore, Niels Thygesen, chairman of the European Fiscal Board, told our own BRK Smith-Meyer. Link for Politico Financial Services Pros. He was reacting to Commissioner Pierre Moscovici's complaints, here, in case you missed Wednesday's Playbook, about the EFB's ongoing criticism of the Commission. We think they've gone too far. Thygesen added. Moscovici's defense is that, we always stick to the rules and we have member states backing. The latter is right, but that doesn't mean it shouldn't be criticized, said Thygesen. Is there a risk rules will no longer be taken seriously? It is a threat, Thygesen said. It's a fact that a number of countries, such as the Netherlands, have insisted that the rules should be more tightly enforced. There is a certain pressure from a significant group of countries. But there is another group of countries that think they're being managed too tightly. There's a need for clarification and a major overhaul. American polls hungry for change. A group of 22 Democratic members of Congress have raised serious concerns about U.S. policy toward Hungary and why the U.S. State Department canceled a planned $700,000 grant to support independent media in that country, report Daniel Lippman and Lily Bear. Cars and fish fingers. The Council compromise on new CO2 levels for cars, despite being quite a bit higher than the German government wanted, is acceptable from my point of view, Chancellor Angela Merkel pronounced. Now that's quite a different tune to the one she was singing 5 years ago, when she picked up the phone to stop a compromise that seemed harmful to the German car industry. 3 takeaways from the episode. 1. The car industry has few friends, and Germany's influence in Europe is weakened. Berlin couldn't even get a blocking majority together, let alone move the needle in its direction. That's a new experience. 2. The deindustrialization of the continent is moving forward, but industrial policies are still a battlefield between individual EU countries, and a competition between Germany and France, rather than a European affair. Start learning Mandarin now, folks. Your new bosses will appreciate it 10 years from now. 3. Cars are the new fish fingers. Eastern European governments argued that stricter pollution limits and bans on diesel cars in Western Europe would lead to higher exports of used cars to their countries, polluting their air and increasing their CO2 emissions. It's a case of double food standards repeating. These concerns, voiced by Bulgaria, Poland and Slovakia, were supported by Lithuania, Latvia, Hungary, Cyprus, Romania and Luxembourg. According to diplomats, it was actually a handy bargaining chip for Eastern Europe, and it worked, as does the fish finger narrative, reports Joshua Posaner, who has all the details of the deal. No infighting. The German government has for once passed on the opportunity for another proper crisis, or even a real internal fight. Or did it? The Grand Coalition must do more than declare victory when there is no government crisis for a week, SPD leader Andrea Nahles told Zeit newspaper. She threatened to end the coalition at the next crisis, or maybe the one after that, if the internal dispute between the Christian Democratic Union (CDU) and the Christian Social Union (CSU) continues to overshadow everything else. Continuing to work together will of course no longer make sense at some point, she said. The man who lost Bavaria. Bavarians head to the polls on Sunday, and barring a miracle, Markus Söder's CSU, which has dominated the state's politics for decades, will suffer an epic thrashing. Matthew Karnischnig dives into what went wrong for the party and the premier. Over and out Belgian election. This weekend's other big election is the Belgian ballot for municipal representatives. Hannah Kokelier and Simon van Dorp break down everything you need to know, from when and where to vote, to how votes are counted and what the various parties stand for. Birthdays: Maddie Delvaux, Gilles Le Breton and Ricardo Serrao Santos. MEPs: French Minister Gerald Darmanin, Prince Constantine of the Netherlands. Big thanks, Jacopo Barragazzi. A message from ETNO. We live in digital times. This means it is fundamental to keep up with the latest news on tech and telecoms policy. Subscribe to our weekly Playbook, all our Politico pro-policy morning newsletters.